That's the question. Y'all can answer. Who knows where we're from? Who knows where the family started in America? Who knows where the family started? Nobody don't know.
South Carolina.
More specific.
Salute to South Carolina.
Salute, South Carolina. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much where everybody came from. So just tonight, who traveled more than 50 miles to be here? Who traveled more than 100 miles to be here? Who traveled more than 200 miles to be here? Who traveled more than 400 miles to be here? Who traveled more than 500 miles to be here? So, okay, how far did you travel? Connecticut? How far did you travel? Texas. We got some other folks here from Texas too. So we may have all started in the same place, but we didn't end up in the same place. Okay. The word family conjures up images of people gathered together and sharing good times. Holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, children being born, graduations, weddings, and food. Y'all know we don't do nothing without food. Family also provides us space to find comfort in times of storms, strength in times of sorrow, and hope when there is no hope. Families are bonded by their traditions, their idiosyncrasies, nuances, and their secrets. Those truths none of us, those whispered truths of the horrific things that were not talked about out in the open, but are truths nonetheless. That not setting the record straight just perpetuates the sinisterness of the truth. The history of our family is not all dark, but there is darkness along with the light of our strong survival skills, our above average intelligence, our successes as people and a family, and the personal and familial struggles we have overcome individually and collectively. So let me pause here for a moment and thank God for what He has brought each of us through and what each of us in this room has survived, because many of us didn't make it. Our ancestors were traumatized, just as being black in America in 2023 is traumatizing. Imagine being a free man or female living in West Africa, maybe Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, or Nigeria in the late 1790s or early 1800s. I picked those areas because when I did my DNA testing, that's where it says I'm from. So somebody ahead of me had to be from there in order for me to be from there. You're going through the motions of what you do on a daily basis, and one day you get caught, captured, taken into custody, detained, and arrested. Scared does not even begin to describe what you're feeling because you've heard about what happens to people when this happens to them. You are snatched from everything you know, everybody you know, everything you have amassed, and thrown on a ship to go to America. Incredible, right? I've not been able to determine what name his parents gave him, but his slave masters or the slave traders called him Nero Geiger. Nero is listed as African and nameless on the 1860 census of Nelson Bell Sr., his son. Nelson Sr.'s mother's name is Susan Bell. Keep in mind, many slaves were viewed as property and not even given the dignity or respect to be named in the master's property inventory. Nelson Bell was born in 1832 in Edgefield County, South Carolina. Andrew Jackson, the seventh president, was reelected. The American flag had only 24 stars. The New England Anti-Slavery Society was organized. The Third National Black Convention convened in Philadelphia. And the first U.S. Negro hospital founded by whites was chartered in Savannah, Georgia. Now, they would have us to think we wasn't doing nothing back then. But I just listed three things that we as a people had accomplished in 1832. Jenny Tyler was born in 1842 in South Carolina. John Tyler is the 10th president. The flag now has 26 stars. The Citadel, the military college of the South in Charleston, South Carolina, where the slaves were dragged off the boats, was established. Notably, Its canons point towards the slave community and the local AME church, Mother Emanuel. 20 years earlier, Denmark, BC organized what would have been the largest slave revolt in the country, but somebody ratted them out. After convicting and hanging BC, the church was burned down and would be the same church where the Charleston Nine were murdered in 2015. Mother Emanuel is where the Charleston Nine, that kid from Lexington County drove down there and killed those people in Bible study. It's the same church.
Wow.
Life was very simple and very troubling for Jenny and Nelson. Now, Nelson is the slave, Nelson is the African son. That's the first one born in America. And he is the root of the Bell family. Life was very simple and troubling for the two of them. Nelson, the slave son of a previously free young man, probably heard stories and memories of what Africa was like and had been to his father, or maybe he knew nothing about what his father's life was before captivity. From the age of 10, days would have been long and hard. Somehow, Jenny and Nelson found each other, received permission to jump the broom and build a family, because remember back then slaves couldn't get married. That's why they created the jump in the broom ceremony, because that symbolized to the area that these two belong together, because slaves couldn't marry. Y'all know this? Okay, good. As slaves, they were not permitted to have much except their faith in their family. They may have risked their lives to learn to read, but before they died, it was legal to teach Negroes to read, and both of them could. Their overwhelming belief in God was the promise of a better life in the afterlife, in the sweet by and by. Church was the cornerstone of their limited free time, and there's 3 churches that anchor our family. That's Mine Creek, Rock Hill, and Pin Creek, all Baptist churches. Yeah, we just found out about Pin Creek these last couple of days. Okay. Jenny and Nelson are the anchors of the Bell family. They lived to see themselves and the rest of the slaves free. We don't know how much this liberation affected their daily lives, but for many, nothing changed. They were born during the last 25, 30 years of slavery, when one man could own another, and died after slavery was politically incorrect and illegal. Okay, so here we go. Jenny and Nelson had 9 children. 2 were born before the emancipation of the slaves, 7 afterwards. Hannah, their oldest child, was born in 1858, a slave. Wilberforce University, the first institute of higher learning, owned and operated by Negroes. Through the AME Church, is 2 years old. This is 1858, we were still slaves, but we built Wilberforce. But they'd have us believe slaves couldn't read. Black folks in America couldn't read until after slavery. But we were doing the thing even then. Frederick Douglass had been nominated for Secretary of State, and Arkansas is re-enslaving free black slaves in their state. And the reason I'm giving you factual data about what happened the year these people was born, so that you can get a feel for where we were as a country, and me not just tell you they were born in this year, and then you don't have a frame of reference of what it was like. Louisa, their second child, was born in 1860, born a slave. Abraham Lincoln is elected president, and South Carolina is the first state to secede from the Union. According to the 1860 U.S. Census, Negroes provide 14.1% of the total population of 31,443,321. That's 4,441,830 Negroes, including 488,070 free Negroes. The next year, 1861, the Civil War begins. In 1865, Lincoln signed the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery throughout the states after signing the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. So the slaves are actually freed in 1863. It just took 2 more years for some people to accept that that was the reality. So if you look at the dates of the Civil War, the slaves were already freed, yet we fought for 2 more years because the nice people in the South didn't want to accept that Lincoln had signed it, and I believe he was killed shortly after he signed that document because they really didn't want to accept it. Sound familiar like some of the stuff that's going on in 2023? History keeps repeating itself, especially when you don't know the history. Okay, Elsie was born in 1868. She was born free in Edgefield County. The first Negro woman earned a medical degree.
All right.
1866, the first Negro woman earns a medical degree. Congress authorizes equal pay, arms, equipment, and health care for Negro troops in the Union Army. The first black-owned newspaper, the New Orleans Tribune, begins publication. Elsie died May 19, 1962, at the age of 96. In 1881, Elsie married Milton Andrews, who was born August 4, 1864, and died July 26, 1927. He was 63 at his death. Both of them could read and write. Their 12 children are as follows. Maggie Lou was born in 1865. She married Milton Mosley. Carrie Isabel, I don't have her year of birth. Walter was born in 1889. Julian born 1890. Doja, or Dotha, was born in 1892. She married Henry Gibson. They had 5 kids: John, Nelson, Robert, Milton, Johnny. Addie was born in 1895. She married someone with the last name Johnson. They had 4 children. Nelson was born in 1896. He had 7 children. Now, this is not our Nelson. This is different Nelson. Orabelle was born in 1899. She married a Hill. Alberta married a Hill. Elijah Rufus, I don't have the year of his birth. Benny Lee Honey, she married a Gray. And Ellen Copeland, those were the kids of Elsie. George was the next child. He was born in 1868, 2 years after Fisk is founded. Y'all know about Fisk University, right? Who went to Fisk? Somebody in here? She stepped out the room. Okay. Oh, no, there she is. Okay, so Fisk was founded in 1868. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship to persons born or naturalized in the state. Charles, the middle child, was born in 1870. The country now has almost 40 million people and 12.7% are black. What happened to the others? We were at 14-something% before, but now we're down to 12.7. The first black U.S. senator is seated in 1870, the first black U.S. senator. And the right to vote is given regardless of race, color, and previous servitude. Harvard has its first black undergraduate. The D.C. High School, later known as Dunbar, opens. Charles had, I deleted what it, oh, no, I didn't. Charles married Isabella Daniel in 1898. So here's where we get to say Charles Bell, Isabella Daniel. Charles had Joe, was born in Saluda, married Annie Campbell. They had 9 kids. Lover married Albert Dozier. I don't have all of their kids. Oh, I'm not listening. No, I didn't. William, they had James, they had Nero, Katie, they had Henry, they had Charles Nelson. And I'm going to mention Charles Nelson because his descendants are in the room. Charles Nelson married Janetta Coleman. They had 5 kids. Nero married Ruby. They had 3 kids? I got 3 kids, right? Okay, Charlie Jr. I think your kids are Jason, Cynthia, and Vincent. Okay. Charlie Jr. had Mamie and Charles. John Henry had Dorothy, Mildred, John. They were twins. Marsha, Joanne, and Regina. Anna married Douglas, Miles. They had Glenda, Jimmy, Laverne, Valerie, Denise. Emily married Chris Greer, Columbus Greer. They had Regina. Regina married Carl Barksdale. They had Jasmine, who is the mother of Bria, Shamira, and Evan, and Carl Jr., whose wife name is, she just told me, and of course I don't remember it. But forgive me, like I said, blame it on my head, not my heart. Miguel is Emily's son. He married Joanne Parker. They have Elizabeth, who married Courtland Mobley. They have Victoria, Vivian, and Arjun. And then you have Christina, Shantia, and Miguel, and Janetta, who married Tyrone Mitchell, and they have Tyler, Justin, and Brandon. There was another, Charles also had Bernice Carroll, and Evelyn Pollard, who had Daniel, David, and Susan. Dinah is Nelson's daughter. Dinah was born in 1872, the following year, the 1871 passage of the first Civil Rights Act. 1871. Louisiana had its first black governor for the month. Did y'all know Louisiana had a black governor?
Nope.
1871. The first black woman and the third of any races admitted to the bar. Congress had 7 black members. Remember, 7 black members in 1872, I'm sorry. The first black man has graduated from Harvard Law School, and Dinah married Joseph Triplin. They had 10 children. Pearl, Josephine, Carrie, Douglas, Robert Lee, Abel, Bertha, Vera, Katie, J.D., Artie's, and I'm not sure what their name is. Something happened to the computer here, but there was one more. Nero, another son, was born in 1874. Georgetown University has its first black president, 1874. The Freedmen's Bank closes, losing more than $1 million. Do you know what the Freedmen's Bank was? The Freedmen's Bank was an institution established to assist newly free African Americans with whatever they needed. Banking, helping them get loans, helping them do what they needed to do, because some of us did get land after the war ended, after we were free. So the Freedmen's Bank was set up to teach black people what we needed to know, because what did we know other than the field work? So that we could survive, and it was in the South. Of course, white folks didn't leave us alone and let us keep that, but it was established. Slavery. The Freedmen's Bank closes, losing more than $1 million. Now, in 1874, you can imagine $1 million probably worth like $5 billion now, but that's the deal. Slavery is abolished in Puerto Rico. The U.S. attacks Panama, and the first free kindergarten opens. Okay, Mary. A lot of y'all in here are related through Mary. Mary's the one. Mary, the baby girl, is born in 1876. Maharic Medical College is founded by the Freedmen's Aid Society of the Methodist Church. Yale University confers its first black PhD in physics. This is 1876, y'all. First black PhD in physics, and the sixth in the country. Race riots against black voters are taking place in the states. President Grant sends troops. Congress has 8 black members. Mary married Frank Dozier in 1873, and they had 9 children. Mary died July 31st, 1977. The children are
That's my crew, Mary and Frank.
There was Rose. There was Maddie. Maddie was born in 1926. She married Zonnie Holloway. They had Robert.
Mary and Frank is my ancestors, direct.
Mamie married George Washington. They had George Washington Jr., Booker T. Washington, Biddy L. Washington, and Biddy has a son, Anthony Walker, who has a son named Trevay. Anthony has a brother named Kenneth Washington. Mamie and George Washington also had Aletha Washington and Diane Washington. There was a son named John. Then there was a Geneva Washington. They called her Jenny. And when I talked to, Jenny married Sylvania Woods. And when I talked to Jenny and explained this to her, she's like, Jenny. Because y'all remember, Nelson Sr. married Jenny Toler. She's like, I did not know my mom was named after. Okay, but yes, she was. So Geneva Jenny, and Sylvania has Sabrina Woods and Sylvania Jr. Woods, and Sylvania has a son, Sidney. They also, Maddie also had Clarence, Maddie Bell, Vera Mae, Frank Delano, and Tommy Lee. Many Minnie, Mary had another daughter named Minnie who married Lonnie Holloway. There was a daughter named Laura. Then there was a daughter named Pearl. Pearl married Salinas West, who had Rosa and Ruby. Ruby had a daughter named Brenda. Will is Brenda's daughter. He's got a sister.
Shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out.
Okay. Ruby had a sister who's Pearl's daughter. Had a brother John. Had a brother Franks. 23andMe is a pretty awesome thing. We got a new cousin that we just found out in the family, Latanya. Latanya is Frank's granddaughter.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I met William through 23andMe about 7 months ago. And so we're connected like that. Then there's Robert, Susie, Viola. There was a Mary who had Sydney and Pearl Lindsay. And Tommy Dozier. Now as kids, we grew up hearing the name Tommy Dozier. But Tommy Dozier married Edith Hill. They had Richard, Pearl, Addie, Sylvia, Eleanor, who was their youngest one. There was Annie, who married Abraham Holloway, Sally, who married John Andrews, and Sarah. Then there was Nelson Bell Jr., who I just said is wrong. Nelson was born in 1880. This was 15 years after the slaves were freed. He was a farmer and he died June 6, 1934 of typhoid fever. Grover Cleveland is the president. The Episcopal Church ordains a black bishop and the first black female receives a patent. The Depression started in 1882. The Depression that started in 1882 ended. The Statue of Liberty is now in New York, and Dr. Pepper is served for the first time. I don't know why they thought that was good, but they did. Okay, Nelson, also known as Nat, married Annabelle Daniel, and to this, Nelson and Charles, of course, was brothers, and Isabel, who married Charles, and Annabelle, who married Nelson, is two brothers married two sisters. So we double first cousins, but we're not the only group, because there's a whole lot of brothers and sisters in the family married. But he married Annabelle Daniel in 1893, and to this union was born Sally, born in 1909. Yeah, I had to go back over that and double check that 3 or 4 times, because I ain't never heard about Sally, but it's on the census as a child. Okay, then there's Fannie Mae, born in 1910. She married Charles Richardson. They had 4 kids: Lucinda Hill, Tavia Hill, Sally Hill, Gladys Hill Chess. Sally had Mark and Michelle. Then there was Maddie. Maddie was born in 1913. She married Luther Harris, 5 children. Annie Harris Briggs. She had Diane Briggs and Donald Briggs. Donald has a son, Chris Jeffrey, and Jeffrey has a little girl, but I can't tell you what her name is right now, but he's got a daughter. Then there was Luther Harris. We called him Sonny. Sonny had Giovanna, Mark, Michelle, Mia, and Michael Harris. There was Jean Harris Tyler. She had Narita. Alice Harris had Anthony. Juanita H. Walker Turner had Charles Walker. And there's a daughter, but I gotta figure out who she was. Then there was Gladys, born in 1915, married to Simi Dean. They had children. Elizabeth married Larry Lyndon Myers, and their children, Linda Myers and Larry Myers, are sitting in the room. Larry has 4 children: Sky, Chancellor's in the room, Elle, and Jeremy. There's Annie Mildred. She had Michael, Harriet's in the room, and Mitch. Michael has a daughter named Evie. Evie's in the room. Michael has 2 other kids, Cortland and Mike. And Mitch has Chanel and Brandon. Then there's Alice. She was also known as Cookie. I'm her daughter. I have a son, Charles. He married Stacia. They have twins, Aaron and Ara. I have a daughter named Charlotte. She married Travis Cave. They have Aubrey Cave and Mason Cave. Miriam, my sister, she has Jonathan Hunter and Jordan Hunter. Joyce is in the room. Lori had Derek's deceased, and Tony Nelson, who married Shalacia. They have Tristan and Nelson. Then there's Vicky. Well, she's not the youngest child, she's the youngest daughter. Vicky's in the room. Vicky had one son, Lawrence Dean, he's in the room. And then there was a son, Robert, Simi Robert. Okay. Then there was another sister, Ruby. She married Calvin Mason. They had one child, Calvin Mason, who had one daughter, Karana Mason, who has one daughter. Can't think of her name at the moment. Then there was Elsie and Moses. Elsie and Moses. They were born in 1920. They were twins. Then there was Alice. Alice married Archie Dean. She had 4 children. Daniel married Patricia. There's Misty, a son, Zoe. Stephanie had a son, Alex. There's Archie. She had a daughter, Janet, married Stan Wilcox. They had 2 kids. Jasmine married Sean Turner, and they had 2 daughters. Naomi's married, and then they had another son, Ricky. Another sister, Harriet, married, Aurelius McDaniel. We call him Jerome. Shirley, their daughter, is in the room. That was her speaking up. She has 2 children, Corbett and Brent. And she got grandkids. And she's got grandkids. Okay. Then there was Sandra. She got a sister, Sandra, Michael, Elisa. Some of these names I have, and I didn't get time to enter them in. Some people I requested information, I did not receive it, so I can't, give you, I had to